Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be doing my final installment of the Tinseltown hop that I am participating in. And if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. All right, so I'm the last person to upload their second video. Definitely go ahead and check out Sara, Jamie, and Te-Arnna. Their channels will be linked below. If you've been following us in this series, we did pick up the Tinseltown PDFs from Zoe Adler. Thank you to those who pointed it out. As a group, we didn't realize that we had made the mistake until like day 4 of it being up, but we do now. So it is Zoe Adler, just like it says right here. And what I did in my first video is I showed you how I added the trees and then I did the background. Well, in the second video, I've already done the coloring, the trees, and the background. And now I'm going to show you how I would add some additional touches. Now, I don't want to call it finishing touches, as I mentioned at the last part of the last video that I did. The picture is finished when you say it's finished. So I could say it's finished right now, and who's going to tell me otherwise? But there are things that you can do that can just make it a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more interesting, but you can go as far with this as you want. Now, just like the other picture, the majority of this is done in a variety of alcohol markers. I will need to write that down, but that is a variety of Ohuhus, Art 101s, Distress ink, and I didn't do this at work, so there's no Mandalama on here, but it's alcohol ink, majority of it. And then the Distress ink is what I did with the background. And so I'm going to be adding some additional touches by way of glitter gel pens, white gel pens. I noticed some spots that are missing here, so I'm going to add in some of these because they were just right next to me. I'm also going to be adding in some pencil work. Now, these are my Amazon Basics, and you might think that these must be my most amazing set of pencils, when honestly, they're just in a cup that's right next to me, and they're just easily to get. So they're actually not my favorite pencil, but the ease of access kind of outweighs how I actually feel about them. Now, I won't be finishing the entire picture with you, but I just want to point out some things that I do generally if I want to add some additional touches to a page. Now, you'll see that I've got some very warm tones here, and I could try and color match, but I'm not going to. Now, I would definitely recommend, if you are going to be doing a layering like this, that you start with either your water markers or your alcohol markers, your Distress ink, all of your wet mediums, put them down. You could even have done a wash of watercolor and then put your pencils on top as either shading or highlights or whatnot. And I think it just makes for a better application. As you guys can see, I don't get a very seamless lay down, but to be honest, I just think that makes it look interesting. So I pulled out some colors. It's hard in the cup and it's easy in the cup, so I got to rely on the pencil tip. I've got a Van Dyke brown and a black here. This might be all that we need. I might maybe pull something orangey or red for this, but I'm going to show you that what I generally do, and when I do editing, I'll kind of zoom this in, and hopefully I can manage the shadows, is anytime there is a triangle, and that's the best way to look at it. Any place where there are two places pointing, then I'm going to add in a little bit in that. I don't know if you can see it. And what that will do is just create some shadows. Now, this paper, as I mentioned in the last video, I think it takes alcohol markers a treat. They just seem to go down really smoothly. It doesn't seem to like the pencils, but then at the same time, these are not the best pencils that I have. Again, the only reason why my Amazon Basics are my go-to is because they are just easily accessible. Now I could actually do this entire chimney, and it kind of makes sense that a chimney would get kind of sooty. And as you can see, as I'm slowly building up some of the shadows in the corner, that it does give it a little bit more of a worn look than the rest of it. And I could do this also with alcohol marker, but I want to show you that even in my Erie books where I wouldn't use alcohol markers, I would put a base of a water-based marker, like a Tombow, a Mildliner, Super Tip Crayola, because it's double-sided and I don't want to ruin the other side. It's easy to get a lot of color on the page by doing marker work. But if you wanted to add some additional touches, then you could go in and you actually wouldn't need a big palette of colors because you're just adding either highlights or shadows. In fact, there is a white in here. As you can see, there's not much on there. I'm not going to sharpen nothing. It's more laziness, but let's see if we can add some highlight. Now it wouldn't be under there, but that's the darkest green that I have, and I wanted to see if it would show up. And so I can definitely get some highlight on here with the white. I don't know that this is a very good white. White is generally not something I use in pencil form, but it does make it look a little dusty, right? We're just trying stuff out. And so I'm liking the look of this. And so that definitely looks a little worn. And then in this red section here, because these two are actually two different colors, I could, instead of focusing on the triangle action, I could just color these bricks in its entirety. And then it makes them stand out against the color in the back. And again, I could have done this in this brown. I could have chosen a dark red. I could have even chosen a blue. In fact, let's do that. So I've got an ultramarine here, and let's see what it does. Because of the color underneath, it doesn't necessarily pull a blue. So if you're only dealing with primary colors, like your pencil sets are minimal, you can still get some interesting effects just by layering your marker base and then your colors on top of it. In fact, that was that ultramarine, and this is this purple, and I think that looks really interesting. And you could vary that up. In fact, you could go back in and then do your whole corner thing with a darker color. Now, I never go for realism. In fact, I don't like pictures that look too realistic because then I feel like I need to maintain the realism. It's why I don't really lean towards Disney books, because those, generally speaking, you color in a certain way. And I like to be able to do whatever I want. I mean, I know I can do whatever I want, but if you see Winnie the Pooh in purple, it just looks weird. I don't mind weird. I don't want to be that weird. And you can see just by doing the layering of the different colors, it does add a little bit of a dimension to it. Now here in the lighter, you would think, well, let's do the brown, but let's see what an orange will bring to the table. And let's go into the... And there are 4, obviously it's a rectangle, but I'm just going to focus on 2 of them and see how that looks. And because there are lines there for the shingles, I guess, I'm going to follow those. And that's basically how I approach coloring. I test it out, see how I like it. If I want to add some more, I always can. It's like when you're salting or putting salt in a recipe, you can always come back in and add more. But if I add too much and I don't like it, and I guess I could erase it, but let's be honest, I'm too lazy for that. And so I add in some orange touches here. Doesn't matter that these 2 tones don't line up together, it just needs to be a little bit darker. And then I could come in with that brown. And where there would be shadow, I don't want to go too dark, but I could put a line under here. And then it just gives the picture a little bit of a dimension and doesn't make it so flat. And again, the interpretation of your picture is absolutely up to you. Because I know people sometimes stress over the lighting source. They stress over how the shadows are. They stress over realistic white space. If you're trying to level up an artistic skill, then it makes sense, at least in my mind, since I'm process-oriented and not outcome-oriented, then yes, if that is something that is important to me, then I can see why it's important to try to make it look as best as you can, because you're pursuing something other than a finished page. But for me, I just want to kind of keep my hands busy, but turn my brain off. See how cute I can make this, but also with minimal effort. I mean, this is actually a lot more effort than some people might do. It might be a lot less effort than some people might do. It doesn't matter. It's my completed page and it's going to be what I want. So you can see just that. I mean, it may not make sense visually, but it does look interesting visually. And that's what I like. I forgot to do in the roof. And so I'm just going to add this. Now that was done in an alcohol marker. Alcohol markers are less likely to streak, but because this area is so small, I wasn't going to be too concerned with it because you wouldn't be able to see, obviously, any streaks anyway. Now, I did pull out the screen. In the other picture that I did, my shutters were green and blue. Just to make this a little similar, I'm going to do some outlines on the window panes in green. And there is already a natural definition on there, but then I'm also going to do an outline here because I believe that's how the other ones were done. And because I did make the background look like it's daytime, I did color in the window panes, but I didn't make them super illuminated as if it were night and all the lights would be on, but I also didn't make it super dark as if it were mid-morning and no one is, or it was first thing in the morning and no one had woken up yet. And that just adds a little bit of sparkle, which I am a fan of, but it also gives a little bit more dimension to the windows. As you can see, I'm making them a little bigger by going outside the line, just because it's such small real estate to begin with. And the snow looks fine. As you can see that there's little touches of snow, but it must not be Christmas time. It might have just been the beginning of winter. But I do have the Uniball Signo because I want to see what it looks like if I white out that. Okay, so clearly I need to do that first before I do the green. Now I know people who their ride or die is this the Uniball, the jelly roll, or some people's ride or dies. The Artiso white jelly roll people love. I have this one and I have the white jelly roll. I don't find any one is better than the other. So it's just really whatever I can grab first. So I'm gonna let that dry and then I'll show you why it looks a little better when I put the green outline. For the pipes here, because there are some lines there, we can assume that that is a little bit of a shadow. We can make it look a little bit more metallic with some color on there. Again, are you going to mistake this for a beautiful work of art that you'd see in a museum? No. Does that add in a little bit more interest than that was there 5 seconds ago? I think so. Whether it does or not, that's actually irrelevant. I think it looks a little interesting, and therefore it makes me a little happier. Oh, I need to be aware that that's drying. And there are a bunch of channels here on YouTube that will give you ideas how to color metal, color this, color that. When I see a triangle, I'm going to probably color it in a little darker. If I see something like this, then I'm going to color it so that it pops out or recedes based on my color choices. If I see lines like this, I'm going to assume that's where the shadow is, and I'm going to color that in a little darker. If those things aren't there, then I'm usually putting the darkest color on the leftmost hand side with the right being the lightest. Why? Because I'm right-handed. That's kind of how it works in my brain. Same thing over here. And I could add in some brown. I could add in some red, but we're going to call that a day. So my window pane lines have been whited out. We're going to go back to this. And now I can have cleaner window lines, because where I can see that there's some issues is it's such a small space to begin with that my white went into the green. Now I can clean that up, but that's kind of like double work. And who wants to do that? So if I'm just aware of the order, then I can just get a cleaner finish. And then when it comes to this right here, I have got, and these are my AN Art glitter gel pens. This one is clear, so this one's going to be useless for the lettering right there. So let's try some things. Because I've got wet glitter there, I'm going to just put this to the side. And this green is opaque enough that you can actually see it. But let's try this. There's no markings, there's no names, so I don't know how it's going to look, and I didn't test anything out prior to. All right, that actually stands out as well. Let's do this brown. Of the three, I think I like the green the best, But now let's do the white. All right, that certainly stands out the most. But then it bothers me that I can still see the black outline of the letter. And if this were really a working chimney, I don't think that would stay white very long. Now you're like, oh, you've messed up your picture. No. I might just leave the S like that and do the rest in green. In fact, let's see how that looks. You're like, you're just gonna leave the white like that? Yeah. You know why? Because it's S for Santa. And so every S in this Tinseltown is going to be white. Because I just made that up. Well, that's a story I'm telling myself in my head. Makes sense. Just realized there's an S in roasting. So we're going to have to, if we're going to have this story be legit, then we're going to have to make that white as well. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to look super janky. But what an interesting story. And sometimes when I'm doing my pictures and it's just going wrong, and it's because of situations like this, I'm like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, I hate it. That's the worst that can happen. But I don't really hate it. I just sometimes like, oh, you just wasted a bunch of hours to get a place that looks no better than it did 2 hours ago. See, that looks so janky. What does that even mean? And yet, now the story is that all the S's in Tinseltown stand for Santa, and they have to be white because that's his favorite color. Because of reasons. I like the windows with the lines whited out. That's a thing, right? And then down here, this is actually a lighter tone than there. Again, I'm not going to do all the elements, but I just want to do some of them with you. This I added. This actually was not on the original picture. The wall ended here, so I also added that as well, and then I framed it out just like the other one. It just made more sense. Oh, let's color this black because I forgot. And for me, when it comes down to when I'm getting towards the end of a picture, generally speaking, that's when the laziness / boredom hits. Like, I want it to look nice, but how much more time am I going to give this project? That's why when I get to birds and bugs, usually I black them out or make them recede or do something so there's just minimal time. So I'm going to do all the line work in black because I have it. Based on the color, I could make this look like copper by introducing some yellows, some browns, some grays, but we're not going to do that. So I'm going to add some black back here. Now in order for this to stay up to health code, they do need to clean their machinery, but doesn't mean it's going to be pristine. So just add some color in. And kind of tarnish it up a little bit. Same with the bricks. or whatever this actually is supposed to be. And I can do some different tones. So on the left-hand side, as I mentioned earlier, is usually where I put the darkest. I can just put a little bit more pressure, but let it fade out. Again, why would a rock have lighting source like that? But who cares? It looks interesting. Yeah, oh, well, okay. Let's see how if we add some snow. Oh, that's worse than the S. Okay, well, only that one right there will have any. Honestly, when that dries, I'm going to go over it in black because I don't like that at all. If it seems like I'm not taking this seriously, you're right. I'm not. It's not that I feel like I'm wasting my time, or and I'm hoping you don't feel like I'm wasting yours. It's just I sit down, I put some things on my desk, and then I just go for it. I hope that it comes out at least nice. As I finish this up and as I live with it, I'll remember the story. You're not going to be able to escape the 2 white S's, and that's fine. And I think it looks a little bit more interesting than it did when I first started. Now, I'll probably finish this in December. It's currently 10:20 p.m. on Monday, the 29th of November. And I want to include this in my December pages. So yeah, I'll just come back and add some additional touches just to finish out the windows and do a little bit more. But I just wanted to show you that, okay, the picture was pretty much done, but now I can add some elements that just add a little bit more interest. Again, we're not calling these finishing touches because once I have my completed pages, someone who is looking to level up their artistic skills may see even more things that could polish this off or make this better. For me, once the boredom sets in and I have gotten all of the enjoyment I can from this particular picture, then we're done. It's a completed page, and I'll just include it in the end of the month video. So I would love to know what you guys think of this series. Thank you so much to Jamie and Te-Arnna, and a big hug to Miss Sara. She actually is the one that started this conversation. I'm hoping we can do something like this in the future. Go ahead and check out Zoe Adler's shop on Etsy. It is linked below. Check out the other ladies if you are into a coloring book and the coloring book community. They definitely are channels to watch as their content is predominantly coloring book related. I just flip from here and there, so it shows. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me for now. And as always, aloha.